Globalization means market deregulations and integration, but I will discuss first the market deregulation. Market deregulation is the reduction or elimination of government power in a particular industry, usually enacted to create more competitions within the industry. And the benefits of this are: first, it stimulates economic activity. Yes, it stimulates. Yes, because it stimulates the restrictions for new business to enter the market, which increases competition. Since there are more competitions in the market, it also improves innovation and increases market growth as the businesses compete with each other. And the four fundamental reasons in the regulations are uh, promoting competitions, and the second one is reducing the cost of running a business. The third one is maximizing economic welfare, and the last is irrelevant reasons for regulatory. And we have also the advantages and disadvantages of having market deregulation. The advantages: the regulation is essential to promote competition and allocate economic resources more efficiently. Meanwhile, other advantages of the regulations are reducing cost of running a business, reducing the corrupt behavior of many officials, offer consumers more choices, and the last one is improve long-term economic welfare. And the disadvantages of this: critics argue that excessive deregulation has adverse effects such as control the economic by few people, a decrease in a product quality. The third one is increase the systemic risk of the financial system. The fourth one is increase the cost of negative externalities, and the last one is essential service to be exclusive.
As of the moment, I am going to discuss something about the integration of globalization. So what is global integration? Global integration means the process with which the local Indian market opens up to the global economy. Consequently, it amounts to letting foreign factors influence India's local business environment. Or in simple words, it's the process by which a company combines different activities around the world so that they operate using the same methods, etc. Market integration provides a number of social benefits, including broadening the range of financial service and investment opportunities available to consumers and increasing competition in the provision of those services. Market integration. Integration shows the relationship of the firm in a market. The extent of integration influences the conduct of the firms and consequently their marketing efficiency. The behavior of a highly integrated market is different from that of a disintegrated market. 3. Markets differ in the extent of integration, and therefore there is a variation in their degree of efficiency. So from the word integration, mauna siya ang pagsama-sama or combine sa mga firms or companies with a particular market. Example of market integration are the establishment of wholesaling facilities by food retailers and setting up of another plant by a milk processor. It can be an establishment of wholesale facilities or retailers. Giuban ang retail facilities to set up one wholesale facilities. Market integration occurs when prices among different location or related goods follow similar patterns over a long period of time. Groups of goods often move proportionally to each other, and when this relation is very clear among different markets, it is said that the markets are integrated. So there are three basic kinds of integration. First, horizontal integration. 2, vertical integration. 3, conglomeration. Why is there a market integration? To remove transaction costs and foster competition, provide better signals for optimal generation and consumption decisions. Improve security of supply. So kung daghan ang mo-trade sa products, di na ta magka-problema sa supplies o ang price stable report.
Of human development is the history of human beings expanding their scope of activities based on the requirements of the development of productive forces and the level of scientific and technological progress. As a result, human beings is in one place gradually move from their respective places of origin and national territory, communicating and interacting with people from different places in various forms. The history of globalization has proved eloquently that the driving force behind globalization is not the people's subjective will, but scientific and technological progress and productivity development. Unless a certain country or group is capable of blocking human technological progress and productivity development, the trend of globalization will sustain itself. Any anti-globalization policies and actions will violate the objective law of human historical development, endanger the international division of the labor system and the normal operation of the global value chain, and ultimately bring unbearable losses to themselves. Globalization, at its most basic, means simply the long-term, secular trend towards ever greater interpenetration and interdependence of the world's economies, and this is indeed inevitable. Over the centuries, as production processes have developed and grown more sophisticated, their linkages have increased. Globalization is one of the most noticeable ongoing international phenomena with the longest duration in recent decades. It is recognized to be the most striking feature marking the current era, exerting significant influence on international relations. On the other hand, the international community has demonstrated a state of phenomenal flourishing trade, great investment facilitation, personal mobility, and enormous technological leaps, which as a result has progressively forged a community of a shared future interlinking individuals. On the other hand, with an increasing degree of independence, the threats and challenges facing all countries worldwide are becoming more common. In particular, issues such as climate change, financial crises, large-scale outbreak of infectious diseases, and cyber attacks have become globalized and need to be addressed through global governance. Regardless of the positive and negative effects, globalization, as the trend of our times, has become the overriding rule and inevitable route for the international community. It is undeniable that globalization is a double-edged sword, having both advantages and disadvantages, and its development process has never been linear but spirals forward, and may recur or even retrogress in some periods. The history of globalization proves that both developed and developing countries may benefit from globalization or suffer from this reality. Even the United States, the sole superpower in the world, is not exempt from this reality.
Irreversible is a 2022 French psychological horror film written and directed by Gaspar Noé, starring Monica Bellucci, Vincent Castle, and Albert Pimentel. It depicts the events of tragic night in Paris as two men attempt to avenge the brutal rape and beating of the woman they love. The film is told in reverse order, with each scene taking place chronologically before the one that precedes it. Released religiously in France, the United Kingdom, and the United States, Irreversible competed for the Palme d'Or at the 2022 Cannes Film Festival and won the Bronze Horse at the Stockholm International Film Festival. Critical reception to the film was mixed, with praise towards the performances and Noah's direction, but criticism towards its graphic portrayal of violence and rape. American film critic Roger Ebert called Irreversible a movie so violent and cruel that most people will find it unwatchable. Has a style to it a very disturbing story that can haunt many for different reasons, whether it's the extreme violence, the cursing, the drugs, or the 9-minute rape scene. Gaspar Noé takes you into this very dark world and doesn't let you go. The camera looks on unflinchingly as a woman is raped and beaten for several long, unrelenting minutes, and as a man has his face pounded in with a fire extinguisher in an attack that continues with after he is apparently dead. The movie has a serious purpose is to its it but makes it no more bearable. Some of the critics at the screening walk out, but I stay sometimes closing eyes, and now I will try to tell you why I think the writer and director Gaspar Noé made the film in this day. Above all, and crucially, the story is told backward. Two other films have famously used a chronology. Harold Pinter's Vitare, the story of a love affair that ends in treachery, and Christopher Nolan's Memento 2000, which begins with a solution to a murder and tracks backward to its origin.
Nobody is in charge of globalization. Markets are self-regulating. An economic market system capable of directing the whole of economic life without outside help or interference is called self-regulating. In the field of economics, globalization is linked to the growth of capitalism as an economic system, which is frequently predicted in the idea of self-regulatory markets. Even though the wealth gap is widening relative to other countries, globalization is said to have increased economic freedom and living standards globally. In a self-regulating market, market prices are allowed to seek their own level, which is a price setting and market clearing mechanism. Markets are expected to be in balance. Even the most local level, no one can predict all the different interactions between consumers and businesses. What will be the most in demand when? What new innovation will emerge? Who will enter or leave the market? What the public taste will be in the future? Or how important a particular good or services will be to a given person in a comparison to all the other good services they may choose at any given time and place. Even on the most local level, no one can know all the various interaction between people and businesses, nor what is most wanted when or what new innovation will come along or who will enter or leave a market, or what the best way to make something is, or what public taste will be like in the future, or how important a specific good or services to any given individual with respect to all the other goods or services an individual might choose at any specific time and place. and set of circumstances or what might be in short supply, when and what the best substitutes for the short good in each country industry that uses it. The only entity involved who is the charge of the globalization is either capitalism and sacred American dollar. Why nobody is in charge of the globalization? Because nobody is in charge of the economies of the world. Most countries are very possessive of their own economy.
Claim 4. Globalization benefits everyone in the long run. The central normative questions of whether globalization is a good phenomena is answered possibly by this decontestation chain which form the basis of globalism. Benefit for everyone is a concept that is often explained in terms of economic progress and prosperity. The notion of benefits for everyone, however, when connected to globalism's tendential concept for progress, draws not only from liberalism's progressive outlook but also from the Putin socialist ideal of creating an economic paradise on earth. Claim 4 represents another bold example of combining elements from seemingly incompatible ideologies under the master concept, globalization. At the 1996 G7 summit, the head of states and government of the world's 7 most powerful industrialized nations issued a joint communique that exemplifies the principal meaning of globalization conveyed in Charge 4. Economic growth and progress in today's interdependent world is bound up with the process of globalization. Globalization provides great opportunities for the future, not only for our countries but for all others too. Its many positive aspects includes an unprecedented expansion of investment and trade, the opening up to international trade of the world's most populous regions, and opportunities for more developing countries to improve their standards of living. The increasingly rapid dissemination of information, technological innovation, and the proliferation of skilled jobs. These characteristics of globalization have led to a considerable expansion of wealth and prosperity in the world. Hence, we are convinced that the process of globalization is a process of hope in the future. My thoughts about the benefits of globalization to our economic growth is globalization helps our economy to double its growth and provides great opportunities for our future. Due to globalization, many sectors and businesses and other types of company can create their goods more cheaply. Additionally, it heightens international competitions, which lowers costs and gives customers a wider range of options. And globalization has many benefits, includes unprecedented rise in trade and investment. More investors now have remote access to new market and investment opportunities than ever before. Thanks to the advancement in
For the continuations of Mr. Saison about the globalization's benefits for everyone. So to begin with, globalization has contributed to the world economies in many beneficial ways. The advances in science and technology have allowed business to easily cross over territorial boundary line. Consequently, companies tend to become more productive and competitive, thereby raising the quality of goods, services, and the world living standard. So, in addition, globalists often seek to cement their discontestation of globalization as benefit for everyone by co-opting the powerful language of science, which claims to separate fact from fiction in a neutral fashion that is solely on the basis of hard evidence, and yet the two most comprehensive empirical assessment of changes in global income distributions in the last decade have arrived at sharply conflicting results. Even those globalists who consider the possibility of unequal global distribution pattern nonetheless insist that the market itself will eventually correct these irregularities. So, as John Meehan, chairman of the
U.S. Public Security Associations puts it episodic dislocations such as mass unemployment and reduced social services might be necessary in the short run, but in the long run, they will give way to quantum leaps in productivity. So, the Al Qaeda attacks of September 11 only seem to have added to the fervor with which globalists speak of the supposed benefits accruing from the liberalizations and global integrations of markets, defending his view that the benefit of globalizations must be defended at all costs. President Bush asserted that free trade and free market have proven their ability to lift all societies.
So the globalist claims is anchored in the neoliberal assertion that freedom, free markets, free trade, and democracy are synonymous terms. So this is focused on the act of voting in which equality prevails only in the formal sense, helps to obscure the condition of inequality reflected in existing asymmetrical power relation in the society. This links globalization in market to the adjacent concept of democracy, which also plays a significant role in the liberalism, which is the further spread of democracy in the world. Conservatism and socialism. Globalists typically contest democracy through its proximity to the market in the making of economic choices. Atin developed through the 1980s in the peculiar variant of conservatism. Fred then calls it is the Thatcherism. Indeed, a careful discourse analysis of relevant texts reveals that globalists aim to treat freedom, free markets, free trade, and democracy as synonymous terms. So, according to Francis Fukuyama, for example, asserts that there exists a clear correlation between a country's level of economic development and successful democracy, while globalization and capital development do not automatically produce democracies. The level of economic development resulting from globalization is conducive to the creation of complex civil societies with a powerful middle class. Praising Eastern Europe's economic transition towards capitalism, so then First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton told her Polish audience that the emergence of new businesses and shopping centers in the former communities countries should be seen as the backbone of democracy. So the idea of Fukuyama and Clinton both agree that the globalization process strengthens the existing affinity between democracy, the free market. However, their neoliberal argument hinge on a limited definition of democracy that emphasize formal procedures such as voting at the expense of the direct participation of broad majorities in political and economic decision making.
So this is the continuation of Claim 5, Globalization's furthers the spread of democracy in the world. For Robinson, the thin concept of polyarchy differs from the thicker concept of popular democracy, in that the latter possesses democracy as a both process and a means to an end, a tool for devolving political and economic power from the hands of elite minorities to the masses. Polyarchy, on the other hand, represents an elitist and regimented model of low intensity of formal market democracy. Polyarchy is not only limited democratic participation to voting in elections, but also require that those elected be insulated from popular pressures so that they may govern effectively. The claim that globalization furthers the spread of democracy in the world is thus largely based on a narrow formal procedural understanding of democracy. The promotion of polyarch allows globalists to advance their project of economic restructuring in a language that ostensibly supports the democratization of the world. Globalization and the spread of democracy is a complex one. On one hand, it may be considered a threat to democracy as it is believed that it undermines the essential requirements of state autonomy, of patriotism, and national identity. Many argue that globalization is the sole reason for the decline of the nation-state, as governments do not have control over their economy, their trade, and their borders anymore. Even though globalization has many advantages, and one of them is the opportunity for economic growth both at an individual and a national level. This means that governments now try and compete for foreign capital and design their policies to please global investors and firms, which result in them not necessarily acting in the best interest of its citizens, and this disregards its primary purpose. Many people, however, cannot benefit from the advantages of globalization. Small companies who are unable to compete with the multinationals on an international scale lose from more economic openness. The result of this loss cause a weakening in the country's democracy. Hence, globalization has transformed the common citizen into an individual who is much more willing to pursue its own economic interest than to be concerned with the content of public policy. According to Schumpeter, globalization has helped promote economic development, which has increased the number of educated and well-trained citizens, which has resulted in a decrease in economic inequality. Another proof that globalization has expanded democracy is through the reduction in information and traveling costs. People have access to a lot more information, not only from their government, but from around the globe. This means democracies can promote their values and ideals to autocratic countries, as autocracies have less and less control over information.
6. Globalization requires war on terror, meaning terrorism stalls global free trade and economic growth. So, one of the examples of this would be the 9/11 attacks, which blends the concept of economic globalization with proper foreign policy of the United States, straightforwardly aggressive and nationalistic. The U.S. aggressive martial military strategy is a response to defend global achievements. There are still ongoing races of questions why the war on terror happens or is included, but that's because it helps to fight against terrorism. And terrorism has become a global phenomenon as a result of advancement, technological developments, communication, and accessibility to transportation. The greatest method to reduce terrorism is to employ international law with the proper organizations in order to build international collaboration, hence the globalization. Another good example would be Daniel Griswold's Associate Director of the Cato Institute says, an essential part of any plan to establish freedom in Iraq should be a commitment to a free market and the institutions that support it, including a commitment to free trade. The technology dynamism and openness for our own market helped us win this war. If spread to Iraq, could help us win the peace. Hence war on terror, because the war on Iraq has stalled global free trade and economic growth around the globe. Robert Kaplan reminds his readers that the purpose of U.S. power is not power itself. It is fundamentally liberal purpose of sustaining the key characteristics of an orderly world. Those characteristics include basic political stability, the idea of liberty, pragmatically conceived, or respect for property, economic freedom, and representative government. At this moment in time, it is American power and American power only that can serve as an organizing principle for the worldwide expansion of liberal civil society, as said in the hard edge of American values. So, globalization requires war on terror, as said because terrorism stalls global free trade and economic growth. Hence why there is a war on such.